Well, the hatred, maybe hate's a strong word, the disrespect is ongoing. Yesterday, Kylan Mills and I broke down the annual NBA GM poll, which just completely slandered the Golden State Warriors. And then a day later, ESPN releases a player ranking poll where Stephen Curry is disrespected. I got Greg Silver to join me next, where we fight back on Stephen Curry's honor. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, where our live shows are exclusively broadcasted. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. I guarantee Greg Silver is going to bring it tonight. You can follow him on Twitter at Greg O. Silver. That's Greg O.H. Silver. But on Threads, where both of us are, I don't know if you're more active on there, but we're both active on there. On Threads, it's Greg O. Silver minus the H. It's just Greg, the letter O, and Silver. Greg, how are you doing, brother? Great to see you. And why don't you add real quick your thoughts, because I know you wanted to talk about this. What are your thoughts on the NBA GM poll and how basically literally not a single GM picked the Warriors to win the title this year? What are your thoughts on that, and how the hell are you doing, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me. Good to see you as always. I'm glad in a way that we have a little bit of a hard out, because that's kind of the podcast God's way of telling us to stay on topic today. But no, I'm doing good in all seriousness. It's great to be back on the show.
What does this hard out thing mean? The audience has no idea what you're talking about, dude. What do you mean by that?
Oh, just with my my commitment later in the night of going into work in the late hours.
A little too inside there, brother. But go ahead. What are your thoughts on the NBA poll, man? What are your feelings about the fact that not a single GM in the NBA picked the Golden State Warriors to win the title this year? Your thoughts?
I feel right in line with Steve Kerr, to be honest, where he said, we don't care. And the reason I say that is because why should we really care when take away the 3 years where Kevin Durant was in the Bay Area and the Warriors probably weren't supposed to win, at least at this point in the season. 2015 with Kerr's first year, they weren't supposed to get all the way to the finals and be champions and get past LeBron James going back into Cleveland. 2017 through 19 was the year with Kevin Durant, and really, 2016 was the only time they were supposed to win and then didn't end up delivering, coming like just shy by 4 points in a game 7. It's okay. We all healed from that. And then 2022 was the year that none of that was supposed to happen. And that's kind of been the story of the Warriors as a whole. I mean, the 3 longest tenured players for any team in the league is now Steph, Clay, Dre, all members of the Warriors. Steph Curry, if you watch the Underrated documentary at Davidson, absolutely none of that was supposed to happen. They were down by 17 points in the second half, I think, of the round of 32 game. And that's when like the nice little fun Cinderella was supposed to end. So yeah, like it's fine. I don't think people are going to hop back on the trendiness of the Warriors when they finally got back on top. Maybe this time last year, people were picking them to go and repeat as champions. But then with everything that happened and the Warriors may be disappointing by their standards, Denver kind of coming out of nowhere, the Lakers had a late season push after the trade deadline. I don't see why people besides us, who are clearly very invested in the team, and others like us, I don't see why anybody else who's just a neutral league eye would feel the incentive to pick the Warriors to do the impossible again.
You know, I have to push back just a little bit, because for anyone who's been watching this show since I first stepped in back in 2021, and I've been hosting the Rick Barry show with Hall of Famer Rick Barry as well for many years beyond that. So the receipts are there. I was emphatically confident in guaranteeing that the Golden State Warriors were going to win the championship in 2022. The only other person I saw out there that made that prediction as well was Stephen A. Smith. He was a little flimsy about it throughout the season because it was a roller coaster season to a certain extent. We didn't even see Klay Thompson until January. But I knew it. I knew they were going to win the title that year. I saw the landscape, and I literally guaranteed it time and again, much of the dismay of a lot of people until it actually happened. But then we saw last year the media doing, in my opinion, a really weak move of trying to make up for their faux pas by picking the Warriors to repeat. You saw a lot of people do that. And then now you're seeing the media lazy and possibly just ignorant again this time. And this isn't the media. This is actually GMs in this case. But I feel like in a lot of ways they go synonymous sometimes. You have the GMs, once again, just looking past the Warriors. Like, just because a year went by, the team still went to the conference semis. I don't think anyone is looking at this Warriors roster, or not many, and realizing how much better it is than a year ago. Like, this team is night and day what it was to what it is now. Do you agree with that sentiment, that this team is far superior? I believe that strongly. Do you?
Yeah, of course I do. And I think that just the vibe you're getting with training camp. And I did listen to the Looney episode, which was awesome. So pumped you got him on the program. If you're somehow listening to this episode and not the Looney one, then I don't know what you're doing. I mean, you can listen to both. That'd be great too. But I just loved what Looney said about he had never seen, or maybe he hadn't seen in a long time, Steph and Klay and Draymond coming into training camp that locked in. Like, I think it's kind of a reset. The Warriors played a month and a half less of basketball than is their goal in this dynasty. So they had a little bit longer of an off season. They made some changes on the roster, some surprising ones, getting rid of people that seemed like were going to be franchise cornerstones, and then bringing in some former rivals and everything. But I think the vibe around the team is good. And of course, we're not around the team every single day per se, but you can tell with the way that Kerr and Curry and Draymond and Looney and all those talking heads are just really light up there. And it seems like everyone's having fun and happy to be back. And I don't think that's something that you can fake, especially last year when you were considering where they were at. They were pretty transparent about it. I think Steve Kerr said that the punch in particular was the hardest thing he's had to deal with as a coach in all of his 9 years. So I don't think there's any kind of like facade they're putting on. I think they're genuinely happy to be back, and just all around the vibe is good and they're ready to work.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It is very different. And there are reporters who actually are there every day. And the sentiment from them is that this team is connected. We heard Mike Dunleavy Jr. utter that word a lot during this offseason, connectivity. But, there is some truth to that, I think. I mean, the Jordan Poole punch did clearly cause a lot of chaos behind the scenes. You had a lot of young players. I still, everyone's heard my thoughts verbatim. It's beating a dead horse talking about those two-way players. But I even think the two-way roster, the roster portion that includes the two-way players is drastically better. Like, I love Lester Quinones. I don't know if we're going to see him much this season, but long-term, he might have a bright future. We have Usman Garuba, who is, who I'm calling him right now. I don't know if the nickname is going to stick, but little big Draymond, just because, he is younger. And so he's kind of like a little brother to Dre, but he's bigger and they look exactly the damn same. It is insane how close they look, how similar they are in terms of just physical appearance. And then obviously we got Dario Saric, Trace Jackson Davis. I mean, I'm really stoked on this roster. I'm getting giddy. I'm even getting excited about Brandon Pajemski. So it's night and day different. Now, ESPN did a list like they do, right? And this is apparently the 13th time they've done this, where they do a countdown of who the best players in the NBA is, or are, sorry, whatever the grammar is there, from I think, was it 1 through 100? I believe that's what they do. And I don't know how they pick these exactly. Is it just a bunch of their behind the scenes folks, and is it just their whole staff voting? Do you know how they do this exactly? Like,
I truthfully don't. The list makes me laugh every single year that I probably should go and look at how they actually calculate it. But yeah,
I found it. It's the ESPN's NBA ranked panel is composed of nearly 150 reporters, editors, producers, and analysts. So it's a collective of, again, close to 150 people who work for ESPN, making these decisions. And they've been releasing these rankings like on an incremental basis. They save the top 10 for last. And I agree, pretty boy, that the Warriors are going to prove everyone wrong. But I don't don't know what this. I'll get to the chat later, but so here's the top 10. All right, and we can, and when we and then we'll totally break this down. But the disrespect towards Stephen Curry, I just, it never ends. And a part of me thinks that it could be like a West Coast bias, meaning only 16% of the population. This is what someone told me recently, and I don't know if it's true, but I trust him for the most part. So correct me if I'm wrong on this, but a friend of mine told me that 16% of the U.S. population lives on the West Coast. And so you can deduce from that the media and the media industry in general just doesn't care about us as much. And oftentimes they're asleep when our games finish. So they're not obsessed and watching a team like the Warriors nearly as much as we are. So maybe it is that East Coast bias. Maybe there is some truth to it. Maybe there's a financial agenda in terms of Steph being an Under Armour client and not a Nike client. Nike and the NBA have a deep relationship with billions of dollars at stake. So I'm always skeptical when that amount of money is involved in terms of bias being implemented. Whatever the reason, I really feel like Stephen Curry was completely ripped again. And we're going to break down that list when we come back. And again, Greg, you're going to be on the show all season, every week. I'm stoked on that. And then maybe you'll push back. Maybe you disagree with what my sentiments are going to be. But we'll talk about that list. We're going to break it down after we give some love to our sponsor today, and that is FanDuel, the official sportsbook of the Locked On Podcast Network. Football season is here. That's the main focus when it comes to gambling, although basketball is just around the corner, and you can even bet on preseason for all you degenerates out there. But FanDuel, first of all, Greg, how are you feeling about the Niners, man? I mean, I don't know if that's your team. That's my team. I love them emphatically. I have nothing but love for the red and gold. Grew up with the Niners dynasty. Are the Niners your team as well? And what are your thoughts about this Sunday's game where they play the Browns?
Well, I grew up a big fan of the Cal Bears, which led me to get really into Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, that got kind of weird toward the end because he just got super interesting. But now I work in the Bay Area and follow the Niners. So I'm not a fan in the same way that you are in the ride or die, but so fun to watch, man. Like, they are just kicking teams' butts. Like,
yes, they are.
I'm sorry, you don't make your schedule, okay? And the Cowboys, like, you could say that's the only team they played. Every team that they play, they seem to do just fine with. So you don't want to peak in September, October, but as of right now, they are unquestionably the best team.
I honestly feel like this is the best Niners team since Steve Young was taking snaps. It's been that long, but this team is complete. They're favored right now over the Browns by 9.5 for this Sunday. And look, you can bet on all that and so much more. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in what's called bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Meaning, place $5 on a bet, you get $200 in bonus bets. It's good as cash on the app. It's that easy. They're just giving money away. That's $200 in bonus bets, whether you win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. Spreads, player props, OUs. The betting options are limitless. So visit FanDuel.com/locked-on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, the official partner of the NF. Trying to find my thing here. L.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, tomorrow night on the show, we're going live with a post-game action following preseason game number 2. The Warriors are in LA to take on the Lakers again. Jonathan Kuminga, his thumb is reportedly healing, which is encouraging. But again, tune in tomorrow night. Trice High, a documentarian who's currently releasing a 5-part Stephen Curry documentary, is going to join the program. He's got 2 of the 5 parts already released. He's about to release part 3, so he's going to come on and promote that. And then Sophia Jones, Mark Jones's daughter, who makes an appearance on this program sometimes, will also be part of the panel. We're going to talk Warriors. We're going to break it all down. But right now, I got Greg Silver with me. You can follow him on Twitter at Greg O Silver. The O is OH. And on Threads, which is both of our favorite platform, Greg O Silver, but without the H. It's just Greg O Silver. So follow him there. You can follow me again on Threads at Dog Wild. So here is the ranking. And by the way, real fast, Drew, I love look. I hope you appreciate my sense of humor. I love to laugh. But Jase Case is still a sponsor. They're just not sponsoring tonight's show. But Let's get to the rankings real fast here. Number 10 for the top 10 players in the NBA, courtesy of close to 150 members of the ESPN staff who voted on this, is Anthony Davis. Number 9 is 39 years. Is he 39, 38, going on 39-year-old LeBron James? He's 9. Number 8, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Number 7, Kevin Durant. That's a slippage, I guarantee that. Number 6, Jason Tatum. Number 5, Stephen Curry. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, 5. That is an insult. Stephen Curry is 5th. Who's ahead of him? Luka Doncic at number 4. The Mavericks didn't even make the playoffs last year. Number 3, Joel Embiid. If you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe Steph dropped to number 5 because of age, Joel Embiid is about to be 30. He's never led a team past the second round of the playoffs. He's number 3. I know he's the reigning MVP, but still. Number 2, Nikola Jokic. Kind of understand that one. And then number 1, Giannis Antetokounmpo. That is the top 10 best players in the NBA, courtesy of ESPN. That is, again, just egregious. It's borderline offensive. Stephen Curry should easily be in the top 3, in my humble opinion. What are your thoughts, Greg, on the rankings?
I've been looking at the chat, and I see our guy, Chris Swish, has had some very spot-on comments so far. If you want to put Nikola Jokic at number 1 because of what he did all of last season, probably having his best of the last 3 seasons and then not winning MVP, and then, unlike the previous 2, making it happen in the playoffs, just Denver ran through everybody and then won the finals in 5, and he was clearly the best player. If you want to put him at the top spot, I'm totally on board with that. That's probably where my vote would go. I'm not saying I would take him over Steph in every game, but just for the sake of, like, let's give the man his damn respect at this point, you can put him at 1. 2 and 3 is got to be a tie. Sorry, maybe not a tie, but I think 2 or 3, Steph and Giannis, you can kind of make a case either way. Giannis clearly has the physical stature and just a defensive monster in addition to everything he does. He's a great teammate. He's a great leader. He is a champion. He elevates his teammates. Absolutely nothing negative to say about Giannis. For Steph, I mean, you got to put him above Embiid, and you got to put him above Luka Doncic, in my opinion, because of, I think I said this to Kylan one time. Can't remember if it was on a show or just off the air in conversation, but I said, of all the people I've seen in my lifetime, the greatest teammate elevators that I've ever seen are LeBron James, the late great Kobe, Jokic, now you could see with all the advanced analytics, and Steph. And it's definitely those 4, and then there's a fat gap between everybody else. As great as some other players are, if you're talking about teammate coming in, culture, players who play for that team have the best year of their career, look at some of the Warriors role players since 2013 and tell me how many have gotten even like minutes on another team once they leave the Dubs. I mean, it is pretty unbelievable. And that really all does start with Steph. I'd put him at 2. Again, the nice thing with Steph is, like, he doesn't care. But that's our job, to stick up for our guy. And he should absolutely be in that top 3. I would push for top 2. And I think many can make an argument to have him at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still peeved that back in 2021, they didn't give him the MVP. They gave it to Jokic. When you look at the measurables, I mean, Steph had a year that was comparable to his 2016 MVP, I'm sorry, where he was the only unanimous MVP in NBA history. He's putting up similar numbers, but because the Warriors finished the 8th seed, they give it to Jokic. But then Jokic also won an MVP one year when his Nuggets team, the next year, I believe, finished with the 6th seed before the Warriors took care of him in the first round. It's just a lot of bias. It's a lot of I don't know what the right word is, man, but it definitely peeves me. And I just don't understand, again, why he's 5. In fact, I want to read real fast what they added some commentary for each of these. So what they wrote about Stephen Curry, in terms of why his ranking was unchanged. He was 5th last year as well. Is that true? For the 3rd straight year, Curry's ranked number 5. I do not get this. He led the NBA in 3-pointers made. Wait, this says I thought Klay Thompson led the NBA in 3-pointers made. That's what ESPN's writing here. Am I correct on that?
I would believe Klay because he had such a hot stretch after New Year's, and Steph missed a couple of stretches with injuries like we haven't seen before.
This article is just, I guess it just goes to show, these are the people making this choice. They literally wrote in this Stephen Curry part of it, he led the NBA in 3-pointers made, not percentage, for the third straight season. I'm pretty sure Klay Thompson won that.
It was Klay, 301.
Yeah, exactly. And it mentions the Curry injury, so he only played 56 games. It's ridiculous, and especially when you consider again that Luka, his team didn't make the playoffs. He comes up almost every year to camp fat. He's chubby, which represents a lack of commitment. I don't doubt that Luka could someday be one of the all-time greats. He's not there yet. And for them to rank him ahead of Steph, that is egregious. I think what is more egregious to you, though? The Joel Embiid part or the Luka part? To you?
Probably the Luka part, because I know he's fun. I know he's fantastic. And down goes the picture frame. Man.
Oh. Is it just random? Like, what happened
just the pain of slippage. I guess I gotta decorate the wall a little bit, but peel back the curtain, everybody. Back to your question, I would say that the Luka part is maybe a little bit more egregious just because we know what he can be. We've seen the greatness and the flashes and how fun he is. Joel Embiid won MVP, and he has been the best player on a team. I also think just in general, it's very easy to tear other people down when you're looking at some of this stuff. But let's look about the reason I want Steph higher is because of what he is and what he has done, as opposed to like, oh, Joel Embiid can't do this or hasn't done this, and Luka's too young and hasn't accomplished this. I'm more focused on what we have seen, what has been given to us. And just off that alone, I think Steph has to be up there. You can say Jokic and Giannis also in that top three because of what they have done and what they have brought to the table.
Right. I'm totally with you. Damage 1212. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, right? So that picture frame was like ESPN's credibility hanging in the balance. I totally agree. That's live programming for you folks right there. So again, Greg and I are on the same page. ESPN, what the hell are you doing? That is such a BS ranking. Stephen Curry. I can understand. I don't agree with it, but I can kind of understand Jokic and Giannis. But the Embiid part of it, the Luka part of it, come on, give me a break. Let's shift gears here real fast because one player that I want to show some love to quickly. He was mentioned, or not mentioned, I'm sorry. He was interviewed after practice a couple days ago. Steve Kerr had some thoughts on him as well. And that is Dario Saric. I am elated that Dario Saric is a member of the Golden State Warriors. To me, he's borderline perfect in terms of what they're looking for. Didn't impress me overall defensively, but given how good he is offensively, he could be good enough on that side of the ball to make up for his defensive deficiencies. Not to mention, again, he's 6'10", 6'11", gives you rebounding. That height obviously creates an obstacle defensively, even if he's not super quick laterally. And then during media day, he gave some insight into what led to his a decision to sign with the Warriors. In case people forgot, there was a good gap of time between the first reports coming out that the Warriors wanted Šarić and were likely going to sign him before it actually happened. It was almost like a week of just kind of limbo. And he revealed that he was doing his research on the Warriors system, watching film and whatnot, which certainly impressed me. I loved hearing that. Let's hear some more from Šarić. He kind of elaborated a bit more on that decision-making process and also just talked about joining the Warriors and how his fit's going to be here. So here's Dario Saric.
Dario, kind of piggybacking off that, obviously you're a really high IQ player. It's a high IQ team. For a big, you're a great passer, playmaker. You've always had that feel. Has it been a seamless transition for you to kind of fit into how the Warriors play offensively? Because I know some guys, some new additions, they actually struggle to kind of acclimate to how the Warriors play offensively.
For me, it was, obviously I play against Golden State Warriors a couple times in my years in the league, and I see how they play. Of course, they always go run deep in the playoffs, so you got the time to kind of watch them, to experience that. Obviously, during the summer, I was watching, some kind of highlights, some kind of games, how they play, and I think, this is the maybe best team for me to fit in. And what I think I'm doing right now, I think I'm doing great. I think I'm doing good on a practice, kind of try to fit in that. And I really like that kind of basketball, when you have like 5 guys who are dangerous in every moment to score the ball. It gets easier for other guys. Gets easier for Steph. And if I score 1 3-point, it's gonna, sometimes people need to think about me. So it's gonna give more, maybe a little bit space more for Steph and Clay and that kind of stuff. Everybody needs to do their own job, and I think should be like a great season for us.
It's a little broken English there, but that's okay. Your thoughts, Greg? I haven't really picked your brain on this yet. What are your thoughts as we wrap things up here? I know you got to run real fast. What are your thoughts on Dario? Super Dario. Although he's Serbian, he's not Italian, so that kind of seems weird than me saying that. But Dario Saric, I love it. What are your thoughts on his addition to the Warriors?
Well, first of all, I'm here for all the puns. I'll be dropping Dario carts, Super Dario. Even if you're a San Francisco native, Dario's Bohemian Cigar Store in North Beach. Fantastic. But look at that, man. Like, the guy is talking about embracing his role. I mean, that's kind of nice to hear, right? It's like, he is like, I watched the Warriors and the way they play basketball, and I thought it would be a great fit for me. And I want to get the ball to Steph. And maybe if I hit a 3-pointer, people will focus on me. I mean, it's kind of sounding like what Otto Porter ended up being in terms of just like a functional piece just a couple of years ago. Maybe his play style might be a little similar to a Bielitsa. I know the chat was talking about that, but I'm excited, man. Like, I do worry a little bit about the defense and maybe the lateral movement on pick and roll. I don't know how it would go defending against the Laker team that knocked off the Warriors last year. But I think that if Chris Paul is willing to run the offense without Steph, that's a completely different style. That's an on-the-ball guard who moves at a slower pace and, is really passing focused and not going to just be running around for 24 seconds and find the threes. And they're both great in very different ways. But I think Dario is also the type of player that could work really, really well in a CP3-led unit.
And the CP3 part is very important. I really want to see CP3. We're likely not going to see it this Friday or tomorrow because of Draymond Green's injury. But I really want to see Chris Paul with that second unit because I'm with you. That second unit looks strong. And to have CP3 leading it would just, I feel like that second unit could be a playoff team on its own. It's that good. And that's what the Warriors suddenly have here. Let's hear from Steve Kerr talking about Šarić as well, because he kind of added his thoughts the same day. This was about 2 days ago following practice. And here is Kerr talking about Šarić.
And we talked all offseason about Dario's theoretical fit. We talked about it through the early days of training camp, but getting to see it on the court in a preseason game, despite limited sample size, what are your thoughts on, how he's fitting in here?
Yeah, Dario's perfect fit. He's been great. I think now that he's got his legs underneath him, he's and a feel for how we play.
Did you hear that? Perfect. Do you ever look, Greg? You grew up with the Kerr family. How often does Steve Kerr use the word "perfect" to describe a player or anything?
Well, I don't think he's like a sugarcoat kind of guy. I mean, I know he likes to be upbeat and positive, and it's a new season, so that means new opportunity. And I understand the positive sentiment, but like I said, it's not just words that you would toss around for no reason. And I think he really believes that when he says perfect fit. That's why I'm super pumped about Dario Saric, and hearing that just a few days ago, music to my ears.
Damn right. Let's hear the rest of it.
He's getting better and better every day. But we really missed that dynamic last year, that that Bielitsa Porter type player, big, who can stretch the floor, but still make plays, and good passer. That really changes the equation offensively when you have someone out there who you can kind of run the offense through and can space the floor with a 3-point shot. So I'm really excited about him.
I think we all are, Coach, and I'm ecstatic. I'm getting more and more giddy about this season. Let's go to the chat real fast to wrap things up. I know you got to run, Greg, and we're going to try to tighten this show to keep it that 30-minute mark to make all the Locked On brass happy. Pretty Boy BT quickly writes, what are the Warriors doing with Rudy, referring to Rudy Gay? No news there yet. The indication seems to be, I'm guessing he's the front runner. His teammates right now are speaking glowingly about him. He looks like a great fit. But again, nothing's official yet. Anything you want to add to that, Greg?
Well, yeah. Did you listen to what Kuminga said about his relationship with Rudy Gay? I thought that was really interesting. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. He mentioned Rudy Gay and someone else is like a mentor, right? Who was the other player? There were two of
I
them.
think CP3.
Thank you. And CP3, yes, there you go. They replaced Iguodala in terms of that mentorship role. 100% agree. I think he solves that hole that a lot of people see in terms of the Warriors maybe needing just one more big. He's a big dude, and he's not incompetent. His basketball IQ is very high. He's a good enough shooter to space the floor offensively. I think he would be fantastic. Coach DC, is this the same coach that was just on our show last week? Writes, I thought the roster was too little, I'm guessing years ago. You crazy man. I think, are you referring to like the 2021-22 season? In case you're referring to, or you're talking about the Warriors being too small that year. Look, the NBA landscape's changed. I mean, the Warriors got away with that 2 years ago, largely because there were no other teams out there that had these. Like the Lakers were not a thing 2 years ago. Let me put it that way. The Nuggets were thin. They didn't have depth. So you had Aaron Gordon, you had Nikola Jokic, and like that was it. Jamal Murray, I believe, was injured that season. Right? Did he get hurt late that season? I think that's what happened. So
yeah, against the Warriors.
That's right. Good call on that. So look, times change. And the landscape right now with the NBA is a lot of teams, the elite teams, did get bigger. But I'm feeling good right now, man, especially if the Rudy Gay thing comes into play with Dario Saric. My early impressions of Trayce Jackson-Davis are very strong. Like he didn't put up much in terms of stats in that first preseason game, but he had one block that was damn good, man. And if he can do that consistently, any final thoughts from you, Greg, as we wrap up the show?
Yeah, I think a nice way to close it out, just because the last time I was here, you asked me this question. I didn't really know the answer to it, which was why have the Warriors not gone and targeted bigs when they struggled with size last year? And I said, I don't really know. And the best guess I had was that they were so confident within themselves and really looking internally, needing to fix what they were doing in their brand of basketball. And I think that that's kind of what I've started to believe a little bit more when I hear players talk coming back from training camp, and they all know the work ethic. Their stars are locked in. Chris Paul, they're really working hard to make him a good fit, and it sounds like it's going as well as it could up to this point. So I think just kind of walking away with that sentiment as we get ready for preseason game number 2, which is, yeah, the Warriors don't play like everybody else, and maybe they do have certain holes, but they're going to try to exploit other teams' holes too. And if they can get everything right, then they can make another run at a Larry O'Brien, and that's what we're all hoping for.
Yeah, I'm feeling good, right? I'm feeling good about this Warriors team. The roster looks legit. Their depth is legit. The traveling Urquidez with some negativity. You're bumming everyone out, man. You're traveling Urquidez writes we're not going to be good. First of all, I don't know the we thing, or if you're referring to the Warriors, agree to disagree, my friend. I think they're going to be fine, man. They as long as they're healthy, that's going to be the important part of this. But if they're healthy, they're gonna be good. And Kuminga, again, he sprained his thumb on the backboard, I believe. That just goes to show how athletic he is. He was just soaring in the clouds, and his thumb hit the backboard of the backboard of the rim. How do you say that? We're done. That's an indication the show's over. Greg, anything you want to promote before we go?
Well, just stay tuned and follow me on the platforms. I mean, I'm planning on creating a little basketball related something with one of the other producers at KMBR. So we should be getting that up and running because we know the station, we're the Giants and Niners flagship, but we don't have a ton of basketball talk that goes along, and we want to kind of keep that going on the side. So yeah, appreciate it. You can always message me with anything that you want to talk about or anything you like to hear from. I'm planning on having a lot of Warriors content throughout the season, and I can't wait. Appreciate you, Cy, and appreciate everyone who tuned in.
Likewise, man. Appreciate you, Greg. Thank you to everyone. We'll be back at this tomorrow night. Warriors, Lakers post game. That's where you're going to find us. Until then, have a great evening, and bye-bye. All right, dude. Go run.